actually a review that I usually do with my grade 10s. And it occurs to me that I didn't teach you in grade 10. And so I updated it for grade 11, and I added a little section to it that I don't do. So I think the first half of this, I bet, we'll go through pretty quickly. Though listen, if we don't, that's okay. And I want to say something else. I never want you to feel like I'm trying to be discouraging or negative. You guys had a weird, maybe you're not aware, you've had a weird high school experience. It has not been typical. Not the typical high school experience. And so we're all in this together, all right? So if I'm like, oh my God, you guys don't have that math down, like, I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just, tell me what you know, tell me what you don't know, because if we need to spend more time on something, let's spend time on it. Does that make sense? All right? There's no judgment here. I'm taking an electronics course right now, and they were like, we'll assume you know calculus. And I kind of took that to mean like they would assume I knew like basic derivatives. And
which you do not.
No, which I definitely do. But no, they're like assuming I know like some pretty hardcore calculus. So like I've been at night going like, oh God, I better reteach myself calculus. So I get it. Anyway, let's get to it. Today I just want to look at the kind of ways we'll have to work with math and interact with math in science. And this is probably more something you're going to deal with a lot in physics. How many of you have already taken physics? I know you have. How many of you will be taking at least one more physics?
Maybe. Never.
We got at least two. There we go. So let's get to this. First thing is this. We got to be able to rearrange an equation. All right? And I want you to get in the habit of doing all of your rearranging whenever possible before substituting any values in. Does that make sense? Okay, so real easy. What do we do here? I've got an equation that says the total voltage of a system is equal to the voltage of the first component plus the voltage of the second component. Doesn't matter. Don't worry about the equation. What I want to do is I've got VT equals V1 plus V2, but I want you to solve it for V2. What do you do?
Then you put V1 over V2, under V2.
No. It's an addition equation, not a multiplication equation. So it would be VT minus V1.
Cool. This is great. I'm glad. Okay, so solving equations is actually a lot like Le Chatelier's principle, which is to say you need to think like a 4-year-old. Well, hear me out.
Well, I mean,
You ever tried to put winter boots on a small child?
Okay,
only one named Charlie.
Mm-hmm. Listen. Whatever you do, they undo, right? Just like Le Chatelier's principle, it's the same basic idea. Raiden, how we doing? How far did you get yesterday, my friend? Did you get to my video lesson? Cool, all right. That's for today, all right? Carl, can you go in and help him get logged in and find that? And if we still have that handout, great. If we don't still have that handout, let me know. I'll print another one off. Though there should be like, I think 11 of them around because I think I just keep reprinting them off. But that's cool. I'll print like 40. I don't care. Okay. When you solve an equation, think of it this way. Yeah, focus. An equation is just some number that's been obfuscated. Does that make sense? This is set up to solve for VT, which means V2 isn't by itself. It's not isolated. And to get something isolated, you just have to undo what's muddied to it. So right now you don't know V2 because you know V1 plus V2. V2 is being modified because something is being added to it, right? And just like a kid, where you put the shoe on, they take the shoe off. You put the sock on, they take the sock off. You put the hat on, they take the hat off. You put the hat on, they're taking the other shoe off, right? Whatever you do, they're undoing. So if the problem right now is that V1 is being added to it, what's the opposite? How do I unadd something? You subtract. So the opposite of adding V1 is subtract V1. And that will take care of that V1, but because it's an equation, what I do to one side, I gotta do to the other. All right. So what would the solution for this be then? V2 would be equal to? Very good. All right. Obviously trivial, do the same one for down below. Solve this one for I1. Yeah, give people thinking time. All right. Yes. Yeah, listen. There's no point being like, oh, this is easy. Listen, everything's easy once you're good at it, and nothing's easy until you're good at it. So we just go nice and slow till everyone's comfortable with it. I kind of like that. I'm going to put that on a sign. Everything's easy once you're good at it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the truth. And until then, it's not. All right, what would I do here? Okay, and how'd you do that? Because the opposite of adding I2 is subtracting I2. All right. But listen, you can say minusing if you want. We're not in math class here.
He's using the force. Act. Come on.
Okay, good. So, listen, when it comes to addition and subtraction, you just do the opposite. Now, what about multiplication and division? Here's one that should look very familiar to you. C1v1 equals C2v2. If I want to isolate this for C2, what do I do? What do I do? Yep.
For C2, you said you want?
Yeah, please.
So C1 times V1 over V2 equals C2.
Okay, very good. How do you do that? He's correct, of course. C2 equals C1v1 divided by V2.
The opposite of multiplication is division, and you cancel out the division on C1v1 because you don't really need it there.
Beautiful. Yep. Yeah, so I want C2 by itself. I've got to get rid of V2. But I can't subtract it here because it's not being added to C2. It's being multiplied. And like you said, the opposite of multiplication is division. So I can divide it away. But because it's an equation, what I do to one side, I must do to the other. There we go. And might not be a bad idea to remember, we divide to cancel multiplication. We subtract to cancel addition. In other words, pay attention to operations.
Should you include square rooting to...
We'll get there. Yeah, for sure. We will get there.
Or rooting to remove it.
Yeah, exactly right. Pay attention to operations. All right? You can't just be like, oh, there's a number that I don't want. I'm going to subtract it. Oh, I'll put it on the other side, but make it negative. You have to actually pay attention to operations. It's important. The reason we divided here is because dividing is the opposite of multiplying. The reason we subtracted there is that subtraction is the opposite of addition.
Why did you write the word divide?
That's what I was just about to ask.
X?
I actually don't know what you're talking about, and I'd encourage you to pay a bit more attention. Now, any luck?
How do you want me to watch it? Because it's restricted on the Chromebooks, so I don't know.
What?
YouTube.
Yeah, anything on Chrome, students cannot access YouTube.
Yes.
Can you run across the hall and grab one of the Windows machines from Calford?
No, it doesn't matter. It's connected to the
Your account.
school account.
Google account.
What?
Yeah, Google accounts. Facebook.
So if I were to open my school account at my home computer, I couldn't use YouTube on
Christ's
it.
Okay, give me a sec. I'll log into a computer. What?
But if you get a Windows device and go on Internet Explorer,
Okay, well that's ridiculous.
Or even just use
Edge.
a
Edge is fine, but
non-DSPN
that's
Google login. Yeah, just don't
fine.
use
I'll
it.
log you into this one. Give me a sec. What a ridiculous thing.
Do you have the note from yesterday, Orlando?
Oh, we'll get there. Just grab today for now. Okay. Here, Raiden, I'll log into this one and give you the. Okay.
That's math. Yeah, I know.
Okay. So now listen. Give me just a minute here, Raiden. We'll get loaded. Sometimes something will be a little tricky. Division may be involved. The frequency is equal to 1 over the period. F equals 1 over t.
who spoke lowercase? I was too busy writing an actual instead of divide
Sure.
symbol.
I don't know why I thought
Word.
that was-
Okay.
It's the way you
This
do it.
this one here. I want you to look at for a minute.
Like
Because
double star.
sorry? Because I felt like it. I want us to look at this equation. What's the problem here? There's two problems here. What's the first thing that jumps out at you? Yep.
Well, the opposite to division is multiplication. multiplication, and 1 multiplied by f would just be f, so the 1's going to be useless in the future.
I don't know what one's there in the brain. How does dividing anything by one?
No, you're not dividing.
This is a real equation. I mean, this is a fundamental equation. This is an inverse relationship. So what we're saying here is that for anything, if you know its period, if you know how long, look here, if you measure how long it takes a wave on the shore to come to you, you call that the period. If you do 1 divided by that number, it tells you the frequency. That will tell you how often waves will come to you. So this is a real property. It's important. So if I know 1, how do I solve for the other? Obviously, if I know t, it's easy to solve for f. But how do I rearrange this for f? What could you do? There's multiple paths. There's a lot of different algebraic ways. A good start. The first thing I would say is this. If a variable is on the bottom of a fraction, get it out of there. If a variable is being divided, i.e. it's in the denominator, multiply by it so that it won't be in the denominator anymore. This would be my advice. There are other ways to handle this. In fact, I'm going to suggest a second one in just a moment, but you got to be careful. I think the best way is just what we're saying here, which is I don't want t to ever be, listen, look at me, I hate fractions. Well, that's not true. I don't hate fractions. I hate fractions where the thing I want isn't on the top of the fraction, but the thing I want is on the bottom. That's stressful. So if you see it, just don't let it happen. So what am I going to have to do here to get rid of the t on the bottom? Right now it's 1 divided by t. The opposite of dividing by t is multiplying by t. That will get rid of the t on this side. Now I don't want the t gone, but that's okay because what I do to one side, I also have to do to the other. And so here I would multiply by t. What's the next line of this equation?
Moving f.
Well, just what's the next line?
The next line would be t equals f. Because
No, it would be
f over
ft equals
oh, you're talking about like
1.
this.
Okay, so there we go. Now, is that solved for t?
No, you would be dividing
You need to
1 by
subtract that from the line.
Ah, good question, because we said just subtract it, except when do we subtract?
addition, and that's multiplication.
Yeah, because subtraction is very good. Subtraction is the opposite of addition, but we're not adding here, we are multiplying. So we say we want to divide by frequency. That's a terrible F. Let me try that again. And what we do to one side, we got to do to the other. These will cancel, and it will be t equals 1 over f. Now, one thing you can know is this. There is a second way to approach this. You can always say, I can just flip both fractions. But you got to be careful, because you can only do that. Hi.
Can I drop these?
Yeah, you bet.
Accessing the net.
Okay. You can. I'll tell you right now what I do, which is they're not accessing the net because they were off. Like if they go X amount of time without, and it isn't even X is variable. Like sometimes it's 2 hours and certificates renew, they get screwed. But all you need to do is click the Wi-Fi symbol and then just get somebody who definitely knows their username and password.
Okay.
And I'll show you quickly. I'll send you an email. But long story short, it is easy to fix. I'll send you the email with what the settings you need are. Just make sure the kid who's doing it actually knows their password. Because that's 9 times out of 10 when you think it's impossible. It's some kid who thinks he knows his password and really he knows 3 passwords ago. But I'll send you the instructions.
Thank you.
No problem.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. And that would be our solution there. Do you guys want to know the other shortcut you can do? Yeah? You won't find it confusing? When in doubt, do it the hard way. Don't even write that. That's fine. Here's what you can say. If you have 3 over x, let's even just use all letters. If you have a over b equals c over d, in other words, if you have 2 fractions, you can do what? You can,
Multiply both fractions.
you could, but one thing you can also do is for free, you can always just flip all the fractions. You can say that it's also true that B over A must equal D over C. But you have to be careful. You have to be careful because, but A over B plus C over D equals E over F. You can't flip. This only works if the only operations involved are multiplication or division. As soon as there's addition, this doesn't work. So you do have to be careful about that. Does that make sense? My advice is actually just do the algebra. But this is a good shortcut to kind of have in your back pocket. We might start every day for like the next few weeks just with a bit of algebra practice, like just 5 minutes of it. It's not a bad idea. Just keep those juices flowing. All right, I want you to solve this twice. Solve it for Q and solve it for T. Is the mouse gone? Do we have no mouse? Is this a thing? Is there a button that turns the mouse off? Is that like a feature that you might want?
There is.
Of course, why wouldn't there?
Here, let me see.
Why wouldn't there be a turn the mouse off feature? Makes perfect sense.
It's one of your functions.
You know which one? It was. Thank you. You're hired.
I was being sarcastic.
No, I know. Why is that? I mean, I guess if you're typing and you have an external mouse plugged in, you might not want to accidentally click it.
I feel like I've rushed this and made a mistake somewhere, but is it just that simple? Because, well,
Yep, that one's beautiful. Now solve it for T.
I have that right above.
No.
Okay, so I did do something wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
No problem, thank you.
You're walking better.
Yeah, no, I look good. In time, I could look great.
Where's your pointer?
Hey, at least you don't have to do any theater stuff with all that walking and stairs to get up on stage.
So hey,
At least you don't have to do all that theater stuff with all that walking.
I know I
and
miss it though,
stairs.
but I miss it, but I'm also glad not to be doing it this year. Two things can be true. All right, how are we doing with this team? Have we solved for Q?
Yep.
How would I solve for Q? Actually, let me ask beforehand, which of these is easy? Is this one easy to solve for Q or easy to solve for T?
So it's easy to solve with Q.
Yeah, Q is nice and easy. In fact, when I look at this right now, I see S equals Q divided by T, and Q is on the top. The problem is it's just right now being divided by.
T.
So how am I going to deal with that?
Just multiply out T.
Right, because the opposite of dividing is multiplying. And what I do to one side,
You do the other.
I got to do to the other. And so these will cancel. And what will the solution be?
Q equals ST.
Very good. Now, We could cheat and just put this here, but I don't even want to do that. Let's go back to the original. What would you do here?
Multiply out t.
Yeah. Right? Now, obviously, I already did that. But do you see how t is on the bottom? I don't want it on the bottom. I'm going to multiply both sides by it. I'm going to say this side times t and this side times t so that they cancel out. And we'll get q equals st. I don't know why I switched those sides, especially when I'm actually going to want this on this side. That is the ugliest equation anyone's ever written. There we go. That's a little bit better. And now what should I do if I want to solve this for t?
Divide out
Over
s.
Very good. Yep, very good, both of you. I'm going to divide by s, and what I do to one side, I must do to the other, and we get t is equal to q over s. How's that feel? Not too bad?
No, it's not.
Are we okay with that? Okay, just for good practice, and I'll go check in on Raid and see how he's doing. I want every possible thing here.
Wow.
Yeah, tell me what P equals, tell me what V equals, tell me what N equals, tell me what R equals, tell me what T equals. Go.
Is it one of them? Oh no, they all are separate. And just dependent on R.
Doesn't matter, solve for them all. P, V,
What's R again?
and-
8.3.
No, not solve for the number. Solve
No,
for
no,
the
I know, but yeah, 8.314. Unit?
Oh. God.
Isn't it like?
It is like 5.
I mean, it's right in here. It tells you what it is here. What's the unit?
Volume.
Yeah, so,
So liters.
yeah,
Yeah,
Pressure is kilojoules. Is it not joules?
kilopascals
Pascal.
per,
Yes.
Mole. Over 10. No,
So
not 10.
Kelvin.
It was-
Kelvin, or degrees Celsius. No, this has to be Kelvin because it's not a delta. Not a delta. So you can't use Celsius because Celsius doesn't have a real.
Huh?
Yeah, what's up?
Absolutely.
You need it? Oh, you need a pencil. Yeah, you bet. There you go, my friend. All right. Okay, I'm giving you 2 minutes and 12 seconds. Get these solved. Let's see.
Just once again, make
Yep.
sure I didn't rush it. And
Let's take a look.
something up.
Perfect. Perfect.
Sorry if they get a little hard to read.
No,
I
it's
can
fine. Yep.
tell you what they are. If they are too
Yep.
hard to read.
And yeah, beautiful.
Good.
Nicely done.
Thought so. Just want to make sure it's
Okay, if I was solving for P here, crew, what would I do? Jonesy.
And RT over V.
Sure. And why would you do that?
Because the only thing we have to do to isolate P is to get rid of V.
And right now, P is
P
being
multiplied by V. So
right. So if I went like this, that would not work.
No, that would not.
No, because PV minus V is not P. It would be P minus 1 V, which is not helpful. All right, we don't want that. So I can't subtract V. I've got to divide by V. And again, obviously, if you were thinking about it, you all know that. But those are the mistakes people make, right? Because they rush. We rush our algebra. So you just always got to watch what operation am I actually doing. And so the solution here is P equals nRT over V. Is everyone okay if I just put the answers to the others?
Yeah.
What does V equal? Sorry? Very good. What does N equal? Very good. And if anyone's like, hey, you're going way too fast here, just tell me. Like, that's what I'm here for. R equals what?
PV over NT. Rather.
PV over NT. Yep.
Simplify that.
Yep.
And then T is PV over NR.
And was T is PV over NR. We all comfortable with those? Nice. Good. Okay, so these are all single step. They may be more than one thing, but we've only been dealing with a single operation at a time so far. But, of course, sometimes we will have more than one. If you want to know your final velocity, you can take your starting velocity and add the acceleration times time. This is a basic kinematics equation. Solve it for time. What would I do? Now, there's two things to do. This is like when you get home, and if you're American, you'd get home and take off your work shoes and put on your home shoes. Does anyone do that here?
No.
I have slippers.
And I shouldn't even say American, like certain Americans. If you're like Florida to Texas, like kind of southern, southwestern American.
Do sandals count? I wear sandals. around
Sure,
my house.
that counts. But listen, most of us, you go in your socks at home, or maybe even, I love going barefoot.
I don't know any
Oh.
of my family.
I tell you right now, I love to go home and take my shoes
Socks
off.
are fine.
And maybe I'll put a new pair of socks on, but you know what I want to take off at the end of a school day? My work socks. Ready for those things to go. Sometimes I'll even do like a little foot bath, because that's nice.
Oh,
You feel nice and fresh,
Oh, yeah.
you know?
Put it
So-
right down.
Solving an equation that has two changes is like getting down to bare feet. If you are going to take your socks and shoes off, which one are you taking off first? Yeah? Yeah?
You take off your feet first.
Take
and
off
then
your
you-
shoes.
Yeah, first you remove your ankles, which I wish I could right now. And then
You fix them.
and then you fix them. And then
attach
no, but right, like if you think about it, it's so intuitive to us, but you don't even have to think about that. You intuitively look at your feet and you know which order to take things off, right? You will get good at algebra when you look at an equation and you intuitively know what to do first. But listen, shh,
I don't think
Listen.
that it's intuitive. I think that it's impossible to take your socks off first before taking.
I mean, that's not true. You could rip them off. Seriously, right? I mean, you could. Because whenever I teach grade 10 this way, some smart-ass kid is always like, you can take your socks off first. You just got to get scissors and like rip. And I'm like, yes, I understand that. Yeah, don't clip your toenails for a while and you should be able to figure it out. But listen, when you look at this equation, we want t by itself, right? There are two things that are affecting t. It is being multiplied by a, and it is also having VO added to it. Both of those things are happening. Which one do we have to undo first? Yeah, you got to deal with VO first, because if you think about how you mess a number up, if we have the number t, well, BEDMAS tells us that first I'm going to put it in brackets if I want to, right? Which I didn't hear. Then I'm going to divide or multiply, right? Then I'm going to add or subtract. That's how I messed the number up in the first place. So when you go to unmess it up, you have to do it backwards, right? If I'm putting my shoes on, first I put my sock on, then I put my shoe on. But when I'm taking my socks and shoes off, the order is reversed. So when you're solving an equation, it's like BEDMAS backwards. But I wouldn't even say that, because that's still something to memorize. And I think memorizing isn't the case. If you look here, even better than that is just understand what this is saying. This is saying there's some number, and if we multiply that number by a and then add it to VO, it tells us something. So just think, okay, to undo that, first I'd have to take away VO, then I would have to divide it by
I
a.
was just gonna ask you if you could do the other. I'd like divide A out and then.
Here's the deal. You could divide A out. Look, if you wanted to divide first, you can, but the rules would say you have to divide everything by A. That is okay. You want to do that, go nuts. But is this going to be fun to work with?
No.
Well, I mean, it's no more difficult.
It is. Oh, it is.
Because then you just still subtract VO.
Okay.
I guess it would give.
I'm going to argue it's more difficult.
Yeah.
I guess it would give the wrong.
Yeah, like it'll get you there, but it's going to be annoying. You're going to be likely to make mistakes, so don't do it. Listen, BEDMAS doesn't mean you have to do it. BEDMAS is just the easiest way to do it. All right? You want to divide first here? You can divide first. You're just going to end up with an ugly equation. It'll still work as long as you're careful. But why make yourself be careful? You know what I like being? Reckless. And the way to be reckless is to just keep it easy. So I want to deal with VO first. I'm going to subtract VO.
Carl's got a point. You don't like to be careful when you like to break your toes.
And you're telling me.
Or your ankles in this case, I guess.
This is a third time for my ankle. It's not broken. It's definitely not broken. It's fine. Really, I'm just being a baby. I'd like to stop talking about it. Okay. What's my next line going to be?
V minus VO is equal to AT.
Okay. What next? Yeah.
V minus VO over A is equal to T.
Good, because what did you do next?
I divided up the A.
Yeah, you said I'm going to divide this side by A, and I'm going to divide that side by A. And here, those will cancel, and we end up with T being equal to V minus VO over A. By the way, like, just so you know, Caleb, like, had you done it the other way, you'd have ended up with T equals V over A minus VO over A. That's not wrong. It's just, yeah, perfectly right. Like, again, there's no rules, there's only guidelines. As long as you're mathematically correct, you can do it any way you like. But bedmass and bedmass backwards is kind of the most logical way. All right, I want you to solve this equation for VO. Just do it. Do your best. Good. Then just wait. We'll take it up together. Oh, we're doing all right for time. Let's see how many of you I can trick. I'll write the original equation, which is V equals VO plus AT. All right, what am I solving this for? VO, what do I do?
Would it not be VO equals V minus AT?
Beautiful. Yep, exactly right. Don't confuse it here. Yes, there's multiplication and addition, but not to VO. VO is only having one thing done to it. It's having AT added to it. And the opposite of adding is subtracting.
Subtract the V off of the other side.
Yeah, very good. So that goes there. And we can say that VO is equal to V minus AT. You'll notice, by the way, that I'm in the habit of always putting the thing I'm looking for on the left. You don't have to do that, but you should. It's going to make your life a lot easier. It's a good habit to build. All right, just put the thing you're looking for on the left. And don't get fancy about it. Just switch them. You can, if 3 is equal to 2 plus 1, then 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. You know what I mean? You can, I almost said 2 plus 5, by the way, and I was like, wait a minute. 3 isn't equal to 2 plus 5.
Math mistake intensity. Chris,
You know who wouldn't have made that mistake?
No, he
California
probably would have.
definitely made that mistake.
You say so.
You haven't seen the math mistake board.
Have you seen the board?
You mistake sigma and mu.
How could you mistake sigma and
Well,
mu?
yeah.
Is mu this one?
No.
Which one's mu?
Yes, it is.
It's
Kinda
that
like
weird
That's a
upside
capital
down.
U.
It's that U with the long tail on it.
Yeah, like this guy.
Yeah, but you did double tail.
Yeah,
Well,
you added 2 tails.
Like that. Like I
It's the tail.
know what I'm talking about. Okay. All right.
Double tail.
Solve this for D. The pressure in a fluid is equal to the original pressure plus dGH. The diameter of the tube times the gravitational constant times the height of it. This is how you can burst a wine barrel with a straw, if it's long enough.
Really?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Get to it.
Why burst it when you can just set it on fire?
No.
Yes.
So solve it for D, solve it for H.
Oh, well,
Okay.
H is also there. That's not much different.
Bless you.
Honestly.
No, it's functionally identical.
Yeah. It's like 1 letter difference.
Oh, there's- oh no. Oh.
Yeah? Hey, get excited.
You're killing me.
No, not killing you. Keeping you alive. All right, talk to me. So I know I'm kind of rushing through these, but I want to have time when we get to the tough stuff. What would I do here? Jerusha? Okay, so I'd subtract PO. So I would have P minus PO equals DGH, and then I'm going to... Got it. And I will end up with D is equal to... Cool. Can I just get the answer for this one?
Yeah.
What's H? This is trivial, right?
Yeah, it's just the same thing, but with D instead of H on the lower.
Very good. Is that comfortable for everyone?
That's not it. DG, not DH.
I see what you're saying there.
And you need to look harder because it was always DG.
Yeah, try to pay attention. Listen, I mean, I get it. I'm going quick, but that's really no excuse for sloppiness.
You're going slow.
Okay, so that should all feel very much like grade 9 and grade 10 math. And again, I'm not saying that to be dismissive or to be critical. It's been a long time since you've done grade 9 and grade 10 math, but that should all feel pretty familiar. Now, if you took 10 academic math, you did more exponent work, right? So here we go. What if we have other operations? It's, again, remember, if you think of it as just undoing the equation, then you never have to panic because you just undo what's being done here. Let's solve this for mass. EK equals 1/2 mv squared. The kinetic energy of an object is in Newtonian motion is 1/2 of its mass times its velocity squared. So if I want to solve this for mass,
I feel like
what would I do? Easy.
that just K over 1/2 times V squared equals M.
Sure. We're not ever going to put a fraction under a fraction.
It's the same as putting a decimal under a fraction.
Yeah, which we're also not going to do. I mean, sometimes we will, but we're not going to put a fraction under a fraction. Because especially here, 1/2, that's fine. Over 2, the opposite of dividing by 2 is multiplying by 2. And of course, that just puts a 2 there. So already we start with 2 EK. By the way, mathematically, you're perfect. Don't mistake that. I didn't love the format of it. So there we are.
The only problem is you're picky.
Yeah, that's not even that picky. That's moderately picky at best. Now, if I want to solve for M, what's still there? That V squared, which no problem, we would just... Yeah, because it's being multiplied, right? So we divide by V squared. What I do to one side, I do to the other. Those V squareds cancel, and we get a super easy M is equal to 2EK divided by V squared. If you want to know your mass, all you have to do is know your kinetic energy and the velocity you're traveling, and you can trivially figure out how heavy you are.
You know what's funny? I had this-
Can't think of any easier way to determine your mass.
You want to know what's funny? I had to have this written out on my physics note sheet as a cheat because I couldn't do it.
Well, that's okay, because now you're going to be great at it.
No, it's-
EK equals 1/2 mv squared again. Same equation. Hey, solve it for V. Give everyone a minute, because this one's tricky.
Oh, yeah,
That's right.
V squared.
That's right. You can do this. You can do this.
No, I can't.
That's too high. I can't sing that. Chris, you can solve this, just do the work. Stop looking at me and trust yourself. If you don't, I'm gonna throw my keys at you. Worst case scenario, you get it wrong, which is okay. I got no deeds to do. That is really high. Is it always that high? Have I just not been singing lately? I I got no deeds to do, no promises to keep. I'm dappled and drowsy and ready to sleep. Let the morning time drop all its petals on me. Laugh, I love you, all is goofy. Yeah, see, I still can't hit that note. That's okay.
Can we make that
Sopranos.
thing?
Yeah, can we make Winging Wednesday, I think?
What?
Winging it Wednesday.
Wing it. I wing it every day, team. Talk to me.
Conference freestyle Friday.
Talk to me. How am I going to solve this? What would you do? Yeah.
So we have the same first step that we did to Subtraction,
What's that actually?
EK equals.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Yep. So, guys, listen. Shh. First things first, I hate fractions. So, I don't want to deal with it. So, 1 over 2, that's easy. Just multiply by 2. There we go. And so we get 2ek equals, what's on the other side now? Yeah, and if you, listen, if I left the 1 there, would it be wrong?
No.
No, but it'd be stupid. But that's okay.
Stupid.
Okay, what next?
Can you just put it over 10?
Yep, good.
It doesn't matter that it's squared.
Well, sure it does. I mean, listen, if I said, how old are you to my son, and he responded 16, but it was my 4-year-old son, I would say, well, that's incorrect. And if he then said, well, I just squared it, first of all, I'd be very impressed with his mathematical acumen. But secondly,
4-year-old
we would agree that that's not the right answer. So it matters that it's squared, but you're right that it's trivial that it's squared. Because,
my biggest concern would be the fact that your child knows how to square a number, but doesn't realize that they're not 16 years old.
well, that's probably true of my 16-year-old, so at least by his behavior, it would indicate that he's approximately 11.
Damn.
Oh, I shouldn't be saying this, and I'm recording. Hi, Greg.
Oh,
I love you.
damn.
You're a good kid.
Damn.
If one day you're watching this because you need math help, and then you stumble upon the part where I'm just saying that you behave like an 11-year-old, smarten up. Okay, so now, I'm sorry.
Goddamn.
You're a good kid.
No, you're not.
So listen, don't talk about my son that way. Nobody asked you, Preston. Anyway, so
Preston might be much better.
now we always said that whenever math we're doing to solve an equation, we just undo it, right? So what's been done to v here? It's been squared. How do you unsquare?
Square root.
You square root.
Orlando,
By the way,
responsible educator.
if you prefer to say, well, we do a fractional exponent, that's fine. Because I don't want to know v squared. I want to know v.
Oh, I didn't read the question.
Yeah. So we're solving it for v. So no problem. The opposite of squaring something is square rooting it.
Orlando, are you a responsible educator?
No. I understood the question. Let's finish this. No. Okay. And there we go. So that is what we do with that. Listen, it's not a big deal. If you have a number that's squared, just isolate it squared. Preston's exactly right, by the way. Much as I like to give him a hard time, to begin with, just completely ignore that it's squared. Just solve for v squared. Get v squared by itself. Once you have v squared by itself, then it's trivial. What's the opposite of squaring something? Square rooting something. This next one's tricky because I want you to solve for r. And not only is r squared, but it is... Yeah, it's on the bottom of a fraction. Have at it. You can do it. Oh my.
And you're going to do your attendance while we have at it?
No.
You like this?
Yeah, I figured as much.
One of Chris combined, right?
That sucked.
No,
I'm going to, I'm going to admire my new enormous box of individually wrapped pasture pipettes.
Why?
I did not mean to order each one individually wrapped, and now I feel like an ecological monster.
Orlando.
What's crazy is that these ones, individually wrapped, were way cheaper than buying them from Boreal.
Are they sterile?
Yeah.
No, they're not sterile. They're just
wrapped in a
ashes
Yeah.
all over.
Contents sterile, unless package is opened or damaged.
It could be packaged like that, but not sterilized.
Yeah, no. In fact, half the time you get something that looks like it's sterile packed, you actually read it and it's no guarantee of sterility, and then you're like, ah,
See?
watch out for that.
They just spit all over it. It's no longer sterile.
That is true. If you go to med school, or if you become a nurse, or if you become a midwife or whatever, You have to do like a whole like week-long course just on putting gloves on. I kid you not. There's a whole process. Because if you touch the outside of your sterile gloves with your non-sterile hands, you're not sterile anymore. So how do you put 2 gloves on without ever touching the outside of the glove with your hands?
That's true.
It's seriously, there's a whole process. You got to peel it up and then like just like it's a thing. It's a whole
Can
thing.
you touch the glove with the gloved hand?
Once you have one gloved hand,
Yeah. So that just makes
Do you know how to
fairly
put
easy.
gloves on without?
I'm gonna challenge you to that sometime. We're gonna put some like black ink all over your hands, and I'm gonna challenge you to put 2 gloves on without getting black ink on the outside of those 2
I'll
gloves.
take you up on that.
Yeah, no, I wonder, because I'll tell you right now, I would be unsuccessful. I'd have black ink everywhere. But maybe you'd be better.
Maybe if you like tried.
Sadly, this is me trying.
So this.
This, by the way, have you guys come across this equation yet?
I don't recognize it.
I think we got through it. I think we like vaguely mentioned its existence in 4U physics when I was horribly, horribly, horribly far behind when we were learning from home.
No. But no, I've never seen
This is the universal equation of gravitation. You can find the force of, again, Newtonian in Newtonian terms, not in relativistic terms, where you can calculate the force of gravity between 2 objects by using the gravitational constant, multiplying it by the product of their masses and the square of the distance between them.
Oh, we did this for the sun.
Yeah.
Earth in our 14.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
The rearrangement to this would be G M1 M2 over FG square rooted
Yep,
equals R.
yep, entirely right. So what would my first step here be?
You multiply r squared to get it out of that denominator.
Very good. We multiply by r squared to get it out of the denominator.
Because it's icky.
Because it's got an ick factor of at least 3.6. Yeah, not a fan.
Out of what?
Ick. Try to pay attention.
Down.
All right, what would our next step be? Trusha.
Do you not know?
Very good. That'll get rid of that.
I feel like I'm turning into Will and saying down all the time.
That is a very well thing, isn't it? All right, r squared will equal. Yeah, and then if we want to solve for r, we just take the square root. Very good. Because the opposite of squaring something is taking the square root. Great. Now
I guess it's taking the root.
we're going to do 2 weeks of math in 10 minutes.
Yay.
Which is to say in grade 10, we do a 2-week build up to this. Listen, you're going to have times where you can't do what we just did. And the reason you won't be able to do what we just did is because you're going to have an x and an x squared. And tell me, how do you isolate this?
How do you isolate it?
How do you solve that for x?
For x itself, we would collect like no.
I have collect.
So you would move.
I'm going to spoil you. It's impossible. You can't do it. So since you can't do it,
You can't
You-
do it
you
without
can't.
a known variable.
yeah, you can't solve for x. Can't be done. I promise. Now, the reason you can't solve for x is because there's more than one solution to this. Do you know why there's more than one solution to it?
Both
Quadratics are annoying.
Yeah, it's a quadratic. If you imagine the graph of this function, it might look something like this. You could have 2 solutions. By the way, it could be a parabola that looks like this, in which case it would only have one solution. And even worse, you might end up with a parabola that looks like this that has no solutions.
You would use the quadratic formula.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So, as I was saying,
There you go.
by the way, the quadratic formula isn't first principles. If you'd come in and said, all you have to do is complete the square, I'd have been impressed. Now sit down. All right. So, this is called This is called a parabolic relationship or a quadratic relationship. And a quadratic in a solvable form follows the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. To solve it, we need to set it equal to 0. To solve a quadratic, you must set it equal to 0. Oh, I mean, that's not true. But to solve a quadratic easily, you'll want to solve it to 0. I'm going to replace must with should, because there's a million ways to solve anything.
Orlando, it's impossible.
It's impossible with just algebra. You have to know.
You should have said that.
You have to know. You have to know something about quadratic functions to solve it, which luckily
Or have the internet.
we do. So,
Don't need to know anything if you have the internet.
solve these for. Rearrange these so they look like this. And time being what it is, we're gonna make these two homework and we're gonna focus on the first one, okay? Because I want to actually get to this. Rearrange this so it looks like that. Rearrange this so it looks like that. We want it to be.
And then pointed to nothing.
Maybe if you paid attention, you would have seen the giant circle that he did the first time.
It's all good.
Right?
It's all good.
If you were writing, how did you know he didn't point to anything?
Okay, how would I rearrange this so it looks like my quadratic up above? It's actually pretty trivial. Yeah, what do I want to be on the right side? 0. So this 45t, do I want it there? No, how am I going to get rid of it? I'm going to subtract it. But of course, what I do to one side, I got to do to the other. Hey, this negative 11, do I want it there? Oh, so what should I do? What's the opposite of subtracting 11? I'm going to add 11. But what I do to one side, got to do to the other. Watch your signs. Easy to make a sign mistake there. And what do I end up with?
Why not just...
Yep. Yep.
Why go through every step instead of just move at a 5.3t squared?
If you want. Yeah, that's fine. I hate negative leading numbers. But it's fine. You'll get the same answer. I hate negative leading numbers. That's the answer to your question. I think one ought not have a leading coefficient that's negative without necessity.
Put the number at the
Yep.
end of you. So,
Oh, you have to order them by highest exponent. Come on now. What are we, troglodytes? What are we? Really? Our grandfathers went to war so we could not lead with the highest. No, thank you. That doesn't even garner discussion. Yes, Ryan, please cleanse the palate of that question.
I think,
negative 5.3t squared plus 25t minus 11 would be
Is functionally has the same solutions as this. Doesn't mean it's the same equation, but it has the same solutions as this. Yes. Yep. Very good question. Very good insight. Let's actually do this one too, because you'll see here, what do I have to do here if I'm going to make it look like this? I'm going to have to expand.
Homework and had to really try to
Do we? That's okay. We'll just, you can do it for homework, but let's just see this one here. How do you expand this? Yeah, so what's p times p? P squared. What is p times negative 3? Negative 3p squared. What is 2.4 times p? Oh, no, it's not. Good eye.
Why isn't P plus P P2 instead of P squared?
Because it's not plus, it's multiplying. When you have two brackets like that, you are multiplying. By the way, you guys may have done the array model. Has anyone ever done the array model? Where you do like P, 2.4, P, negative 3. Nothing wrong with that. P times P is P squared. P times 2.4 is 2.4p. Negative 3 times p is? Yeah, negative 3 times 2.4. Yeah. And if you want to do it that way, and then we can even collect like terms all at the same time, because that and that are like terms. In fact, what do we get from that? P, negative 0.6p minus 7.2. And what's on the right side of this still? 8. Do I want 8 on the other side of this? So we have to subtract it out. The opposite of having 8 is not having 8. Subtracting it. And that will now make this side 0. That 8 goes with its like term, the term with no x's, right? If this had been 8x, I wouldn't subtract it from this, I'd subtract it from that. If that had been 8p squared, I would subtract it from this. You got to know your like terms. So this would be still p squared, negative 0.6p, but now that is going to be very good. All right? You can see if you are not comfortable multiplying binomials like that, if you're not comfortable multiplying a bracket by a bracket, let me know. I can throw some practice questions at you. You got to get good at that. That's got to just be on autopilot, and it just takes practice. You do 200 of those, you'll know it for life. You never think about it again. We'll do it.
Is that true?
Yeah, it's like anything else. You know, you watch somebody who's played. My aunt, like, was in piano lessons as a kid, hasn't played piano in like 20 years. But if she sits down, she can like play all the scales and play like Moonlight Sonata. Right? Like she forgets, like, she doesn't still have like music memorized, but all the skills, all the scales, all the stuff you drilled into your brain, it's still there.
Because it's more muscle memory.
My high school math teacher used to see you in the hall and say, y-intercept. And you have to say, x equals 0. She had like 10 of these things. But just if she saw you in the hall, she'd yell something at you and point, and you'd shout it back to her. You do this like 30 times a day. I still hear her voice in my head. If I'm finding the y-intercept of something, I'm like, let x equal 0. I know what to do. It's in there.
That's one way to teach.
But really, like, we say that, but yeah, it's one way to teach. Like, when I was in Haiti working with my wife, where she was teaching Haitians how to resuscitate babies, they have very low literacy rates there relative to some other places. They teach them in song, which to us seems quaint or whatever. Let me tell you, those women will never forget how to do that, because once you have a song in your head, you'll never forget that, right? Like, it's mnemonic memory. It's just in there. Now, how to solve a quadratic? Where, we'll take it up tomorrow, where ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, there is an equation to solve for x. If you're interested in seeing a proof of it, I'd be delighted to show you. It's incredibly elegant, but for now, we're just going to say this. If you want to solve for x, where that is true, x is equal to, what is the quadratic equation, my friends? They call it the quadratic formula now. I'm like an old man. Negative b plus or minus square root of minus. That's good. That term they call the determinant. Would you like me? Does he have?
He has a song.
Go.
I don't know. That's all I remember.
All right, someone sing it. Go. Drusha, stop lying. Drusha, I insist.
Go get helper.
It's not a rap. It's like it's a rap.
No, it's not a rap. It's just
Oh,
nursery
cute.
rhyme. Yeah.
Oh, is it a Pop Goes the Weasel? I think I've heard that before. Good. Okay, well, we wait for him. Listen, look at me. You need to be able to plug this into a calculator 100% of the time without error. I have so little patience for people who are in a 4U chemistry class and they don't know how to put this into your calculator. Because listen to me, I'm not saying we don't all make mistakes. What I'm saying is practice. Practice. Know how your calculator works. Know how your calculator works. Everyone's calculator is different. Know how yours works. Because if you don't know how it works, you're going to multiply the whole thing by 2 at the end, or multiply the whole thing by a at the end, and you'll get the wrong answer, and then you'll say, oh, it's so stupid, and it doesn't work. You gotta practice.
It's gonna give you what you put in.
Now, my advice is in chemistry, you know where I want to do this? Desmos, baby. Because what's the greatest invention of the 21st century?
Desmos.
False. Minecraft. What's the second best invention of the 21st century?
Drugs.
Desmos.
Whatever new drugs they've.
All right, so let's take a look. Here's the beautiful thing about Desmos. Just put your quadratic equations here. Negative b plus the square root of b squared, whoa, that went weird, minus 4ac all over 2a. And then also, because it's plus or, it's either plus that or minus that. So paste it, and instead of plus, make minus. And what's it saying here? It's saying, just input these, put them in order. Just have this open next to you, because now, look at this equation right here. We've got this quadratic we want to solve. What's the a value? Okay, put that in for a. By the way, it's saying no answer right now, because right now, this is an impossible quadratic. Hopefully I didn't screw up and give you an impossible one. I don't think I did. No, we're good. What's the b value? Negative 45. And be careful with that. Hey, we've got a value. And C? 11. And how many values do we get? You get 2, which makes sense. Because when you take the square root, there's actually not one answer when you take the square root. There's always
2 because it hits 2 points on a problem.
But even more fundamentally than that, why does square rooting something give you 2 solutions? Right? Like if 2 squared equals 4, why does the square root of 4 have 2 answers? And it does. What are the 2 answers?
2 and 2. Because there's 2.
2 and negative 2.
Oh, you're so good. 2 and negative 2, because what else equals 4 if you square it?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. So anytime you take the square root, you don't get one solution.
You get the negative.
You always get 2 solutions. And we are very much in the habit of ignoring this. But let me tell you something. Physics, chemistry, you don't get to ignore this because negative numbers are very real. Negative just means that something is declining instead of growing, or is moving backwards instead of forward, or is underground instead of above ground, or whatever. That has meaning. Not always. We're going to talk about that. But anytime you take a square root, you get 2 answers. So when you use the quadratic equation, except in the very rare case that the 2 answers end up being the same answer, which will happen, or the case where there's just no answer that works because your determinant is negative and you can't take the square root of a negative number unless you really want to, because then you just say it's imaginary.
Or you just say.
But we won't worry about that right now. You're going to get 2 answers. All right? And we need to be in the habit of expecting to get 2 answers. Sorry?
You don't want me to take them back to grade 10.
Guys, do you want to go back to grade 10?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
That was a terrible year. That was when COVID.
So what are the 2 solutions here?
8.
And by the way, we're getting approximate solutions here, which in math is an issue. I mean, by the way, you don't have to get an approximate solution. You could simplify this without going to decimal. But in chemistry, we know that every value is measured anyway, so you just go with your sig figs and it doesn't matter. How many sig figs am I putting into this? 2. How many sig figs do I want to take out?
All of them, other than 2.
So my answer is 8.2 or...
0.2.
There you go. So then we can say x equals 8.2 or x equals 0.25. Quadratic equation. All right?
We use 2.
And then this can mean a few things. In chemistry, sometimes it means there's 2 stable equilibria, which, yeah, sometimes there's 2 stable equilibria. There's 2 different things that can happen, both of which are stable. Sometimes one of these won't make any sense. Sometimes you'll look and go, oh, one of the answers is that I've used up 18 times more calcium than I had to start with. Then you'd say, okay, that answer doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? You have to look at and interpret your answers. But when you do a quadratic, you will typically get 2 answers. All right? I have left you with some practice. All right? And I've tried to make them kind of what they look like when you're doing chemistry. And in chemistry, they look ugly, right? Because we are dealing with K values, and K values tend to have scientific notation in them. And we're dealing with starting concentrations, and usually our starting concentrations are decimal values, right? This is the kind of thing you're going to solve. So I want you to go through and do all of these for homework. Where you can't, I want you to keep trying. And where you still can't, I want you to message me and ask for help, all right? Don't just wish the math away. Work at it, all right? You're going to need to do it. So do it. You're capable. And it's okay if you need help. My advice, before you even start, I would open up a page in Desmos, and I would put in negative b plus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. I would put in negative b minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And I would put the sliders, have a, b, and c, and then you can at least simplify this step for now. But I would also practice getting my calculator out and putting those numbers into a calculator and getting the same thing as this, because there will be times when you don't have Desmos with you. Those times will be hell-like, and they will be regressive, and it will be a shame because there's no reason not to use Desmos because it's the second greatest invention of the 21st century, but they will happen.
Minecraft?
The first best, yes. You could certainly solve quadratics in Minecraft as well, by the way. You could build like a hyper-complicated redstone system to do it, and if anyone wants to do that tonight and build a Minecraft quadratic solver, you'll be my hero. But in the meantime, practice here.
So we don't get 100% in your course if we did that?
No.
Oh, wow.
You can get 100% in my course if you do that, and also don't make any mistakes on any of the other things in my course. That's how that works. Listen, I've nenever given out 100% yet, and I don't intend to start. All right.
Just having a conversation if we can even input like 100%
No.
report card.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Other teachers do it. They're just better people than I am.
In grade 10.
No, can I say, I haven't yet, but at some point in my career, I expect to give out 100 in, say, like grade 9 and 10 math. Because that's very, or even senior, because that's very linear, right? Like that's very, it's kind of either right or wrong. I don't know what getting 100% in biology or chemistry would look like.
Not
Like there's nothing to improve. Like you wrote a paper and it was perfect. I don't know what that looks like. Yeah.
No, you take off 0.
And maybe it'll happen. Maybe I'll see that one day. But the closest I've ever come in a 4U is... No, I gave a 98 once in 4U. And only once. Yeah, 4U Chem. 4U Chem, I would say it's more doable than 4U Bio. I feel like 4U Bio is a real like 95 to 97 or kind of... That's exceptional. Just because there's a lot of stuff. Like 4U Bio is deadly. There's so much... How many here have already taken 4U Bio? You did. Jonesy, did you? You took it online.
I ditched it.
Oh, you ditched it online.
You
Ah,
don't remember? You were like, oh,
I
there's
do.
a 4U
Me and Kyle
bio
were the only
teachers here
ones.
now.
that's right.
I have avoided her like the plague.
Oh, I keep forgetting.
I have avoided her the entire semester and she has not noticed my existence. And I plan to keep it that way.
Jonesy's online teacher ended up being a teacher here in the building this semester.
Who?
I only know her first name. It's Heather.
Oh, yes.
I don't know what her last
I
name
think it's
is.
Bootsma.
That sounds right.
I think it's Bootsma.
Hey,
Yeah,
she's very
it's not
nice.
Heather.
She's lovely.
I've avoided her like the plague.
Yeah, I get that.
Because I ditched her entire class because the only thing we were doing was learning about cells and the workload was extensive and like so much.
My friend Chris and I were once massively complaining about a professor while in line to get a sub at Brock. And I turned around and she was right behind us. And then for the rest of my 4 years at Brock, like if I saw her anywhere, I would be like, oh God! And I'd like run up the stairs and like, I'd do anything. I felt like such an idiot. I was so
avoided her.
humiliated.
I avoid her. She will be gone.
You should tip your hat.
No, I was just like, I felt so, because we were being pretty, like we weren't like horrific or anything, but we were just like, did you get anything out of these lessons? Like, are you learning anything? She's like, no, it's incomprehensible. And I'm like, oh, she's right there. Oh, now you're waiting for the guy to make your sub. And you're like, could you just like give it to me, please? Oh, it was awful.
And that's why I avoid her like the plague.
We're gonna do it tomorrow.
I don't even know what room she has, so it kind of scares me to
Yeah.
like tiptoe down the main hall.
The other part of the note because it was just the quadratic.
Oh, nice. Let's see.
Yeah, but I don't know if I understand this entirely.
Can I take a look?
Yeah.
So our reaction is hydrogen reacts with iodine to produce hydrogen iodide. And we get 2 of those for every one of these. So We are told in the question that we start with 2 moles of hydrogen gas, 3 moles of iodine, and no hydrogen iodide. So those were our conditions. And it's a 1 liter vessel, and the truth is, for gases, you can actually just use the mole you can just use the mole values there anyway. We're going to talk about that later. Not a big deal. Because really, yeah, anyway. Because for gases, they're always in the same container, so volume just cancels out. You don't need to treat it as a concentration. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I didn't want to throw yet one more thing at you guys yesterday. So there we go. So now...
Yeah, you say that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I still.
So there we go. And that's our setup. Now, as the reaction happens, that's going to get used up. So we say it's going to go down by X. And that's going to go down by X. And this is going to go up by X, but it can't go up by the same X. Because if you look here, there's one of those makes 2 of these. So you correctly put the 2 there. Beautiful. So it means however much this goes down by, this is going to go up by twice as much. These have to go down by the same amount, which means can these concentrations ever be the same?
Yeah.
Could these end up the same as each other?
Well, no, they're different numbers.
They're different numbers, and
But
they
yeah.
change together.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So these can't ever equal each other because they are changing together in lockstep. And this is changing as a seesaw to them, right? But it's going twice as high. So if this goes down by 1, that goes up by 2. If this goes down by 2, that goes up by 4, right? Okay. So when this reaches equilibrium, this will be whatever it started at, 2, minus whatever it drops by, x. This will be what it started at, 3, minus what it dropped by, x. This will be what it started at, 0, plus 2, because it's a product. It's going up. So we end up with 2 minus x, 3 minus x, 2x.
Stapler is my
Great.
new friend.
Then we set it up here, and we say, okay, the KEQ is 25. Nice. And 25 equals the equilibrium concentration of HI squared, which is 2x squared, which, little mistake here. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then down here, 2 minus x, 3 minus x. What should that be? Yeah, good. But as mistakes go, that's a trivial one. But you're going to see it's... And unfortunately, because there's addition and subtraction, it's not like in the C1V1 days or dimensional analysis days, where if you forget to double a number, you just double the answer.
Yep.
Right? Because there's addition, you're
That
done.
would be my favorite 21.
You're right back to here. That's going to be 21. But that's, again, as mistakes go, that's fine.
Yeah.
So now we look here. First things first, I love that you drop the decimals because we're just doing math here, right? So that's good. So we say 25 equals that times that. So you have opted to multiply into here first. Cool. I like that.
Yesterday I did the same thing and you just did it like the perfect square thing and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah,
And
either
I
or
don't
is
know
fine.
why that confused me.
Either or is fine. Now keep in mind that this, you've done the right thing here, but you have shown it wrong because this needs to be in brackets as well. Just be aware that as written, this would be 50 minus, right? So just put some brackets around that, but that's fine. Then yeah, that should be 21x squared. But again, that's a trivial mistake. And so then here, the only thing that changes is, look at you. Like actually.
Okay, we literally had the lesson on the quadratic formula on Monday.
Oh, really? That's so funny.
That's why I was like, oh,
Like with the 2Ds?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I love
I was
it.
like, yeah, I'm good.
Nice. Oh, that's great.
I was helping Grace and stuff with it and like getting tally plot up, so I was like, I know what I'm
That's
doing.
awesome. That's great. And then you'll get 2 answers. Now, in this case, those are incorrect, but they're very close. So let's just quickly.
Which one?
Well, we'll talk about that because that's the right question. So this will be 21 now, right? But that's the only thing that changes. This will be negative 125 and positive 150. Okay. So there we go. So we get 2 solutions. And you can see that it changed a little bit. Now here, we get 2 solutions. So we say there's 2 places this could reach equilibrium. Okay. First of all, maybe there's 2 solutions. But in this case, let's look. Because we're going to have to do 2 minus x and 3 minus x, right?
Okay, so I was kind of looking at that. So we can have a negative concentration.
That's right.
Okay.
In
was on
physics
that track.
and chemistry, some things can be negative and some things can't. So we always have to think, what's the physical meaning of what we're talking about here? So here we're talking about a concentration. So 2 minus 4.2 would be negative 2.2.
So it'd be the other solution.
So this is the only one that is a valid solution. So in this case, we say this can be eliminated as a possibility via the property of reductio ad absurdum, which is to say, when taken to its conclusion, it gives us an absurd answer. So that isn't the answer,
Okay, I didn't know
and
that
that
was
is.
a whole word or
Yeah.
principle.
A little Latin for you.
Thank you. So yeah, I was on the right track.
You're doing
and
great.
I did do it, and then it just because I had the
And these
didn't
are,
do the 4, I was like,
and that is
it's not
like
working, what's happening?
classic. Why can't I speak? That is like just perfectly classic algebra mistake to make, and it's a sign you're on the right track. All right. If the mistakes you're making are of that nature, you are doing the job correctly.
Will you help?
No, I have to run away. You are welcome to it. You can also just take it with you and scrub her on. But I'm
One piece that I can scrub it. It's the one piece that did it.
yeah. You can even go home and just use a knife and pull it out. It's not gonna hurt you. It's kind of gross. You want off that's yours to take. I will help you tomorrow if you want, but yeah, today
Okay.
Getting
I'll
out
see
of
you
here.
tomorrow.
That's what I'm doing.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Good. Solid. Yeah, you too.
Bye, teachers.
Bye. No, you're welcome, Blaine.
Blaine?
Blaine spent 4th period with me instead of going to Linda to be a peer tutor because Blaine needed to get caught up on pre-assignments.
Nice.
And I went to Linda and I said, "Can I just keep Blaine this period?" I said, "I know it's a pain. He's your peer tutor, but I really need him to get caught up in math." And she went, "Keep him for the whole period."
Did I miss the memo? A dress? A sports jacket?
You realize he wears that sports jacket every day.
I usually take it off like 3 minutes in, but it's always here.
And I woke up, didn't want to get out of bed this morning.
Yeah.
So I went with I don't want to be here, so I'm going to dress nicely to make myself feel better.
Oh, okay, nice.
Because my dad always said,
Yes.
if you look good, you feel good. And followed that up with, "Darling, you look marvelous."
Do you know
Aww.
what that's from?
I'm sure it's from something, knowing my
Yes.
father.
It is from Saturday Night Live. I can't believe how young you are. Oh my gosh.
Okay, can I just guess who says that? Because that sounds like a Steve Martin.
No.
No, who is it?
Billy Crystal.
Oh, that makes sense.
And I think he just I think it was Fernando. Darling, you look marvelous. He played this little Latin.
Yeah, my dad has said that my entire life, but I've always
Yes.
taken it to heart that if I feel like shit, you can always tell the days that I didn't want to get out of bed because they put the most effort into how I look. If I'm in jeans and a t-shirt, I'm in a really good mood and got up just fine.
That's so funny.
Okay. Joe.
Yeah.
We gotta talk about this new noise.
Yeah, no kidding. I had like 3 good days of showing up and getting work done, and then I haven't seen in 2 days.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, what's up? What's going on?
Oh, yeah, FYI. Oh, so anyway, came to resource. Like, did she come to class?
Today? No.
Yeah. She never came to class?
No.
Oh.
Not yeah, like but keep in mind
Before.
this class keep in mind this class is chaos.
No, I know.
Because it's like I cannot stress enough what a useless period 4 teacher I am for those math. Well, kids now has been just rating up to now. Because of all the kids to have just one of in a period doing something different than everyone else. Rayden's like the world's least motivated student who attends most sporadically. It's been a night. It's been a gong show.
No. So anyway, she came to resource like maybe one day last week.
Okay.
Period 4.
Because like if she wants to work at a resource, she can. No? Okay.
So, but anyway.
Because here's a good idea. Like, she can sit back there. It's whatever.
Well,
So you can stick her in my room. I
she
don't care.
came today. Maybe that's a better idea because she came today, and I said, "So you're from Mr. Orlando's class, right?" She goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, what are you working on?" "Oh, I've done everything. I'm just here to chill." And I'm like,
There's a new assignment today. It's filmed. There's a new assignment every day.
so I didn't push anything because
Okay, that's good.
she's connected with this Phoenix/Cody Burns or whatever. So
Cody's a shit show.
who came down to resource too.
Anytime he does.
Which ones?
Cody was the one who was in my class last semester, 4th period, that always was in the hall doing nothing. He's since dyed his hair black and gone super weird. He was
Got him.
already
Yep,
weird,
yep,
but
yep,
he's
yep,
gone
got him.
super weird.
Got him.
I think they know each other from like a previous level.
Yeah, she lived in Welland before going on like she's been in the foster system. She's telling me a story. So she lived in Welland before it went like Welland, Hamilton, Toronto, Ottawa, Kingston.
So she gets bounced around the world.
Poor kid.
So,
But-
but anyway, when she was there with Cody, like last week, or Phoenix or whatever,
He's still, I keep going to Cody. He hasn't corrected me
like
yet. So.
they did nothing, and I'm like, okay, well she's new here, you know, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt, and you know he's got issues, so
So many issues.
so
At any time
anyway,
he's homeless. So.
today,
I wish I had already taught this course. It's fucking culminating. I haven't made one yet.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I
Like,
couldn't
I
care
haven't-
less. Luch gave me a new 4E student who wasn't even in 4E, who was in 3E at the last school. I don't have a culminating for that either. Like
I have a culminating for 3, but I don't have one for 4E.
I wonder if
Just
it's
change the numbers. Nobody's gonna know.
I was gonna say they're not that
They're
far off.
not.
I'll send you
You
the
send it
3
to me.
ones.
Listen,
Yeah.
because honestly,
listen,
You
I
know
don't think
what?
Luch would give a rat's ass if I said,
You know
this is
what?
what you need to do between now and
I
June.
might have a 4E.
I don't care either way. She was in 3E anyway. I don't
Yeah, I'll send no, but I'll send
Could
you
care
the
less.
I'll send you the 3E one that I've got, and if I have a 4E one, it's really really old, but I can send it to you.
Hell, I'd start raiding on it, except he's already a hall wanderer.
Yeah.
If I could trust him to just chill out after he had it done, I wouldn't care if Reagan was done this course next week. I really wouldn't.
Anyway, this person is up to some shenanigans, some weird shenanigans, I think involving some other people that I don't really know about, but this Marissa, I'm, if she comes to resource again, I'm
Send it
gonna
back.
say,
Send it back.
you have to go back to class.
Yeah, just send it down to me and just if my room's too noisy, she's got the office. The office, she doesn't want to be in the same room as Reagan. She's got my prep room. Like there's tons of room.
Yeah.
And again,
Or
in Denver in my
Carl
classroom.
is here to help, but I think maybe I'm just gonna give her a package and Luch won't care, really. Something
Nobody cares about the 3 and 4Es.
No.
Get them their credits and get them done. Trust me. Think of last semester. We dumped 4 kids from my 3C into 4E, and my solution was to hand them the workbook and go do this and do some assignments. And half of them never looked at the workbook and just did the assignments.
Yeah.
The other 2 are in credit recovery because they couldn't even manage to do that
So
much.
who got this from? Did Jenny get it?
Jenny got it.
Yeah.
Jenny got it, and
Not Abby.
Abby didn't. Abby and Cody are both in credit recovery
Okay.
for it.
Okay.
Which one's that be?
She's the pretty brunette that's always busty
Oh,
out
okay,
of
okay.
the top.
Yeah.
What was
I forget.
my 4th was, but they ended up getting it.
Yeah. Oh,
Who is the brunette one's friend? The blonde one.
The blonde
She
one,
get it?
Summer. Summer got the 3C.
Oh, she got the C.
She got the C.
Oh, good. Oh, look at that.
We are.
You have 2 best friends.
Yeah, Abby and Summer.
Will do work.
She will do work. She just has nothing going on between her ears.
She's
Like
a little
it's,
dumb.
there is
Oh my
nothing
God, you're
up
dumb.
there. No,
She seems
no, like in
Like-
not just school wise, but reality wise, there is
Space Cadet.
nothing up there. She is like no life experience. No, she's so naive, so sweet, but so naive.
She has a great personality. Abby's just. There's nothing.
Abby
we'll
is-
not go over for Abby.
Yeah. Other than she's pretty. So if Abby's smart, she'll hook up with a guy who has a good job and has money, and she'll be fine. She'll be set for life.
Jonah.
I know. You know what? This-
Jonah's homeless.
Really?
Yes.
Hey, did I tell you? You might know. My doctor, when I went to get my leg looked at, was an East Hill grad.
Dr. Sasha Bond?
No, a new one. He's new. When he first left high school, he did like 12B. He graduated in like 2006, I think he said. But I think you were here. You were here.
I was
he mentioned,
here.
Yeah, he mentioned you. He did a year at Eden, and then he ended up going to school to be a law clerk, which he was for like 4
Now
years.
he's a doctor.
Okay.
Yeah. Then he went back and became a social worker, and then after a year of that, he decided, oh, he really wanted to do
Go, go,
and the
go,
name
go.
was Schaefer, but not related to not those Schaefers.
I know
Dr.
that
Schaefer.
Eric Schaefer.
Maybe don't know the first name, but Dr. Schaefer, lovely guy.
Which, by the way,
Wait,
what
no,
is? So
not
what did
Eric
you do to your leg?
No, let's look.
So what did you actually do to your leg?
I don't know. He said come back in a week if it still hurts. So I probably shouldn't have played softball on it. That was dumb.
Was only here for 1 year?
No, he was here. He was here 9 to 12. But then he did. He was saying they moved to St. Catharines when he did like his 12B.
That's gonna be Eric Schaefer.
Here, I'll pull up his picture because I Googled him. Dr. Schaefer, St. Catherine's. Because I was Rory Schaefer.
Yeah,
Rory
Rory's the
Schaefer.
younger brother.
Yeah.
Rory's the younger brother.
Yeah, Rory Schaefer.
Yes.
And he was lovely. Like he was a lovely guy.
Rory is the younger brother. Yes.
It's really hard to make decisions.
Anyway, but yeah, he was a lovely guy. Very good.
Can you images?
Yeah, there was I saw a picture. Resident Dr. St. Catherine's Law Clerk. There was this like article like from law clerk to. There it is.
I have 3C.
Oh, damn it.
So they didn't get my first semester exam.
Yeah, that's him there.
Yeah, okay.
Kind of a nerdy looking guy, but
Yeah,
lovely.
yes,
He was very good.
yes,
He was
yes.
really. I liked him way better than I liked my doctor.
If I remember correctly, like it's 4 brothers in the family.
I think he said something like that. Yeah, we had a good long chat.
Yes, but they didn't all come here because they
They moved to St. Catherine's. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, see, I would give
But yeah, he was funny too. He was like, I don't think they'd remember me. I was pretty quiet. And I said, I bet somebody remembers you. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yes. No,
But,
I totally remember. And yeah, no, his brother is Eric Schaefer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe,
Yeah.
for UC, 3UC all in one room, do I give an exam or not?
I heard you say 4UC and all I could think was FUC. And I was like, yeah, I feel similarly.
If you want to give an exam,
Yes.
give an exam.
Okay. U's, I'm giving them an exam. C's, I'm giving them an exam. Because you know what?
But it's a group and I
Yeah.
only have 2 exams to make.
Yeah, listen.
Just give them
Give
2
the same
exams.
exam for God's
Exactly.
sake. Who cares?
Do it.
It's
Well,
I give them on the
serious.
exam because remember.
Exam day. Exam day.
And remember,
Exam
you
day.
see, they're going to be like, we're C's. You don't deserve an exam.
Just
That's why they deserve an exam.
Just say, you know what I'm doing with all my C's? I am saying this can only help you. I will use it as replacement for assessments that you did poorly on.
Yes.
And for my U's, I'm saying, buck up.
Oh, the U's have no choice.
But the C's, make them do it.
And do the same. You're right.
The only reason I'm not giving one of my C's is because I feel like I didn't give it first
No, that's
semester, so I
totally not fair.
shouldn't give it
Hey,
second
why punish
semester.
yourself?
That too. But
Yeah,
next
yeah.
year, you
It's like a
can
meeting I
bet
had.
your ass there'll be an exam in 3C again, because I think there should be. I just feel like it's unfair this year.
Yeah,
No, you have
Are
to.
we
that's
going
how
to
that
have
Yeah.
to provide them for
Okay.
the office?
Right, I'm
Do
going
you
home.
have any same?
You and I have dates tomorrow morning?
Yeah, excited?
Do you have any same?
No, I'm dreading it.
Same first semester.
Not you.
You can do great.
No, that's the thing, so I can make my own rules. That's the other.
And I don't think so. We don't have to hand anything else to the
No, I don't think
No.
so. They haven't said anything about that.
No, we don't?
Okay, thank you for your
And
emotional
the other thing I'm going to say to them is, I'm going to be honest with them, like after they've written it about my intention to be generous. In the build up to it, I'm going to imply that I'm going to be a real hard ass about it because they need to. I have a lot of sympathy for the monstrous learning environment these kids have had for the last 3 years. I really do. I think this is a nightmare. It's been disastrous.
You courses
But
have to
the fact
have
of the
exams.
matter is,
Anything else is optional.
They gotta learn to start working hard again because
So your dad is half
even
one.
like my 4U class is lovely. They're a delight to teach. They're a little immature for 4Us, but and by little I mean astoundingly.
A lot.
But they're delightful. They're fun. We have a good time. The pace, oh, it's just deadly. And they just need a little kick in the pants. They need a kick in the pants. Pants kick.
I think I might do it ahead of time and then have the exam day. And like, come and finish it if you didn't finish it.
Some
I
kids
can tell
talk
you.
about their sociology
Don't do that to
experiments.
yourself. Don't do that to them.
Yeah.
And here's the deal: if they don't finish it, don't even care. They don't finish it. Throw it in
It's for the experience for them, that's all. Don't tell
Like
them.
I said, next year my 3Cs will be writing an exam. I just feel like because
No,
I
to
taught
do it, one
3C
semester
one
without the
semester,
other, yeah.
first semester without an exam, I can't put the exam.
I
this
have a
semester. It's not
question
fair.
now. So for the instrumental, the 9-10,
Yeah.
which is open.
Yeah.
You know, like with the demonstration of learning thing, that it's only the ones that are failing
Which
that are
is
getting an
ridiculous.
exam. So should I be doing
No.
anything?
No.
Yeah, in an era
My-
where there's no exams,
my
then
2Ps
learning
are
has been
writing an
worked
exam.
to reverse. Now it's like
Not
a
even the ones
bad
that are
thing.
failing.
DL
are writing an exam.
They're not?
I mean,
You
DL
shouldn't have to do it.
Not
DL
doing
was
it
always
So I
stupid,
shouldn't have them?
but
should I just have them come in on that
Have
day?
them come out on that day
Remember, do a whole
and do
half-day PD
extra
session
work
that
or
we
get
explain
caught
it to
up on
teachers.
things they haven't finished, or
Demonstrate
make it an
it.
hour-long work period.
Okay.
Who's
That's
So
got
what
loads
they
of
have to
that,
come in.
anyone
Right,
under
yeah.
70
Anyone
is
under
coming
70 is
in.
coming in.
Explained in his career.
But
I love
that's
Fred.
it.
Fred's a lovely guy.
Okay.
But I think
And that's what I'm gonna do with my
You know,
two
and
Ps
I think
and my
that's
one
what I'll
and my
do.
one else.
That's what I'll
Kimberly
do.
was here's what I know. She
Okay.
was our principal in grade 12 in OAC when I was at Eton, vice principal.
Okay.
I remember nothing about her, which I interpret to be a very good thing, because I remember hating our previous VP's guts.
So under the radar type.
Under the radar type.
I can tell you a story about her.
But I will tell you that
but was it
yesterday I talked to
was
somebody from Crosley and he
somewhere
went,
else?
no comment. So that didn't
No.
inspire me with a ton of courage.
My only experience with her was I taught summer school, taught the 7-8 jump ahead civics. I did not volunteer to do this. I did not sign up to do this. I got asked to do this.
History. You love those courses.
Well, I taught summer school in previous years, and I had taught the civics and careers in summer school. So during COVID, when they had a shit ton of people,
Was this during COVID?
yeah,
You have
the
rocks
first
in your
summer.
head?
They called me and asked me directly. I felt like I couldn't say no, but I did postpone it till August. I got July off and taught the August one, so that was better. But I had this parent, so we had to do 4 hours of office hours, but we could put them anytime. So I would do 2 days from 8 till 10, or 2 days from 8 till 12, 2 days from 10 to 2, and 1 day from 12 to 4.
Yeah.
Right.
Spread it out for the kids who sleep in and things like that. So the day I'd done an 8 to 12, and then I logged off, I loaded up my kid, and I got to my parents' house and gone to the pool. And an hour later, I got out of the pool, and I had 7 emails from this mother that were steadily getting more and more vile. To the last one where she told me I was a fucking retarded teacher, that's the direct quote out of it, that I should have my teaching license revoked. 7-8 jump ahead civics and careers. Her kid hadn't logged in 3 days, and he didn't understand anything. And he had emailed me for help while I was in the pool. And I hadn't responded in a minute, because that's literally the distance, the time gap between his email and her first email. And I had 7 emails, and I responded to none of them, and I sent them to Anne,
Oh, she did?
and she pulled the kid out of the class immediately.
I like that. That's a good story.
Good.
That was her
Okay.
solution.
The
So,
undramatic move.
so
You need
But
to
a
give
very-
these
but a
kids
very-
where they're at.
But a very Norbert move.
Yes.
Which I
That's right.
I greatly appreciate Norbert's willingness.
Yes,
to-
yes.
Yeah.
Remember the
Me too.
first?
I hope we don't lose Norbert.
I
No,
don't think we
he's-
are.
Oh,
He's,
good.
I don't
Me
think
too.
they'll change both.
no,
They did before on us, so.
I know.
yeah, but I think because of COVID, they're not going to do something.
I will
like
never forget that first the first year of Norbert when in like the first staff meeting of like after progress reports, he said like, what was the quote was something so funny. He was like, just let me know the ones we need to, the ones who are, it was so boiled down to underwater and we need to pull the plug. And I was like, that is not a dogmatic quote.
No.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was like, it was very level-headed about
It was such a culture shock from the like, well, what do you think we could
swim?
That's right.
do?
Yes, what do they still need? You know, we really gotta get all of them.
We need a 5th chance program on the upstairs.
Speaking of people who need a 5th chance, have you seen or heard from Noah at all? I talked to Mom last
I talk to Mom
night.
sometimes. She's
Toby Noah?
She can't, no, McDonald. She can't even get him out of bed in the morning.
Aw.
Breaks my heart.
Like he's
such a good
apparently every day that she does manage to get him out of bed, he has a panic attack
But-
before he even leaves.
So
the
here's a
house.
question: why is this kid in school?
That's
Seriously.
the question.
Get him a. This to me is where creative thinking comes in. Get him a volunteer position. Call it a co-op. Call it 2 co-ops.
Do
Find something for him
Fix
to
something.
do. And if you can't be around people, chop wood.
Do
Sort
We're
something.
doing it for other
Something.
people.
Do something to help us
But-
get out. Like his anxiety is so high,
Here's
he
the-
literally can't set foot in the school right now.
Or here's another one. Set up some home instruction, man. They used to do that for all kinds of things.
I don't
Why
Yes,
did
that's true.
Whatever happened to home instruction? We used to do home
COVID
instruction for
You were
everything.
home
I
instruction.
did a lot of home instruction, and I hated it every time. But for a kid like Noah, I do it for free for goodness sake. Like I'd be happy
This
to.
kid out. So I talked to Mom last night because like he's handed him 3 things so far.
Yeah,
for
he's
being
not.
that. And they're all good. They're all in the 90s.
Oh,
when
he's
done.
brilliant. He's a brilliant kid. Have you ever taught him?
No.
He just
Yeah,
hasn't
I don't
handed
even
in
know who he is.
anything.
Oh, he's
And
so.
Mom,
You would love him.
Mom says she doesn't know what to do, and I'm just like, I was like, see, I said, all the work's online. If he wants to work from home for the rest of the semester and just watch the videos online and then try the assignments, just do that.
Joe, you should look up The Onion, Kids Who Don't Give a Crap or something like that. It's really funny. Tracy Sacco showed it at a staff meeting at Collegiate once.
My daughter Claire and I send each other Onion articles all day. This is like our love language to one another. She sent me one. She sent me one the other day. Talking about language, but it was. It was.
It's gonna be good.
It was just. Kid can't believe bedtime story is from the Bible fucking again. And that's like local toddler. That's really no good. I thought, Claire! I was like, that is funny.
Oh.
The cat was on a relationship cotton is casual.
You know what? Get creative with him. You're right.
She was
You
like,
need the blessing from anyone else.
she was like,
I'm gonna
ring a
give
bell
you an
that. I'm like,
example.
it's beneficial.
So-
fair enough.
So Jenny Korecki.
Oh, Jenny, I've been very creative with over the last 2 years.
Jenny
Yes.
requires creativity. Do you have Jenny this semester?
No, I haven't had
No.
Jenny since grade 9.
I was
Oh,
saying,
right,
because
yeah.
we got Jenny through grade 11 math by dropping her to the E.
She's in my bio. What has she done this semester? Maybe 2 assignments. But then ran the best dissection I've ever seen a kid do. But won't do a write-up.
Yep.
You know, like
Caleb is furious that Devontae got a higher
I know.
point. He's so harsh trying to cut people down. He was like, yeah, but you got lower, higher, or default ratings. You didn't play harder people, and just, all this stuff. And there's no silence. I'm like, but you had fun, Devontae? And he's like, yeah, I had fun. And so
I love Devontae.
you had fun,
He's
and you had
fantastic.
the checking here highest score. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
That's so fun.
I love Devontae. He's,
no, it's not all.
he
I
is
have
amazing.
some good news.
Oh, yay, good news is good.
Well, it's good news for you.
Oh.
Hear it.
Trevor Tokola.
Yes.
I weaseled a supply day for him
Awesome.
from Norbert for
Good,
June
good.
3rd.
Really good. That's super helpful. Okay.
I shouldn't say weasel. We really need that help after the election to get